Hi, everybody. I'm Brittany Lewis with Forbes Breaking News. Joining me now is my Forbes colleague, Money and Politics reporter Kyle Mullins. Kyle, thanks so much for joining me once again.
Always great to be here, Brittany. Thanks for having me.
There has been a growing rift in the Kennedy dynasty ever since Robert F. Kennedy Jr. announced his run for president. Talk to us about that.
Yep. So RFK Jr. has always been a bit of an outsider within the Kennedy family, especially in recent decades. He's long been this proponent of a variety of controversial beliefs. You've got these anti-vaccine misinformation that he's routinely spreading, and you've got other controversial ideas about healthcare and that kind of thing. And then additionally, the Kennedys are a long-time stalwart Democratic family. And so when you have RFK Jr., who is challenging President Biden for the Democratic nomination, and then ends up backing out and deciding to run as an independent instead, you're challenging an incumbent Democratic president. A lot of the Kennedys didn't quite enjoy that very much. And so a lot of them have actually come out and announced their support for President Biden for re-election over their relative, RFK Jr.
One of those relatives that you were discussing, one of his most vocal critics within the family is Jack Schlossberg, President John F. Kennedy's grandson. He's been going viral recently, sharing videos where he's bashing RFK Jr. and telling viewers to vote for President Biden. Who is Jack Schlossberg?
Jack Schlossberg is, like you said, President JFK's only grandson. He's also the son of Caroline Kennedy, which is JFK's only surviving kid. And currently the ambassador to Australia. Jack Schlossberg is a Harvard and Yale educated lawyer. He appears to be going into law. He just passed the New York bar, I think, last year. And he is one of many heirs to the larger Kennedy fortune.
So let's talk about this fortune, because you point out an interesting quote from Jack Schlossberg in your reporting. He said this in a recent video posted on social media. Quote, "This economy is going to keep freaking booming. We're going to boom. Everybody's going to get freaking loaded." You noted that he's already freaking loaded. So let's talk about the Kennedy fortune a bit and talk about its origin story as well as that complex trust that it's in.
So the Kennedy family fortune did leave a lot of their descendants, to quote Jack, freaking loaded. You've got Joe P. Kennedy was the originator of this big fortune. He made hundreds of millions of dollars in real estate and finance and movie making. And this is JFK's father. He had 6 kids that we think are likely to have received some portion of the fortunes. A couple died early on and died or otherwise wouldn't have received a piece of the fortune. But 6 kids, including JFK, who we think probably were in on that fortune. He put all of this money. He died in 1969, which is actually after 2 of his sons, JFK and RFK Jr.'s dad, Robert F. Kennedy. After they died, their father died. But he put a ton of the money before he died into these very complex, very opaque trusts. And these were designed in very particular ways to help them avoid estate taxes and ensure that the Kennedy family was provided for generations and generations to come. They're so well shielded, in fact, that some of the Kennedy kids have noted that they don't even know really how these trusts work. They just receive the distributions from them. So, like I said, very complicated structure. We don't really know how they all work. The Kennedys don't even fully know how they all work. They're managed by professional money managers in New York, and that's the family fortune that we're talking about.
I know that you're saying that Forbes and the Kennedy family has a limited understanding of how this trust works, but does Forbes have any indication of how much the Kennedy family is worth?
So Forbes did a lot of digging into this back in 2015, and at that point, we estimated that the whole family fortune across the whole range of things is worth about $1.2 billion. But that's split up over dozens of Kennedys and their descendants.
So let's talk about those dozens of Kennedys and their descendants. We know that the Kennedy family has many branches. How is this wealth divided?
Yep. So you've got these 6 branches that I think are the most important ones. Joe Kennedy's, 3 sons, 3 daughters that we're talking about. You've got JFK's branch, Robert F. Kennedy's branch. You've also got Massachusetts Senator Ted Kennedy, a famous liberal firebrand. He was he's one of the sons. And then you have three daughters. You got Eunice, Patricia, and Jean Ann. I'm consulting my Kennedy family tree here that I've got, which helps me keep all of these Kennedys straight. JFK's branch is actually the smallest of the branches because he had a couple of kids, but two of them didn't make it past basically anywhere past even birth. One was unfortunately stillborn, and the other was died only a couple days after being born. Two of his kids survived to adulthood. You have Caroline Kennedy, who I've already talked about, and you have JFK Jr. JFK Jr. died in the 90s in his 30s in a plane crash. And he never had any kids. So you've got one line straight down from Joe P. Kennedy to JFK to Caroline Kennedy, and now Caroline Kennedy has three kids. And one of those kids is Jack Schlossberg. So you have this chunk of the fortune that, assuming that it was divvied up among the kids relatively evenly, has been passed on fairly undiluted for several generations now. On the other hand, you've got multiple other branches with multiple kids that are helping dilute the fortune. RFK Jr. comes from the largest branch. His father, Robert Kennedy, had a whopping 11 kids, 9 of whom are still alive today. And so you've got you've got a much more fractured fortune from that chunk.
So because RFK Jr. has many more branches that are close by in his family web over there, that's why his fortune is less than what Forbes is saying than Jack Schlossberg's. But is there any indication of how much RFK Jr. is worth, and where is all that money coming from?
Yeah, so because RFK Jr. is running for president, we have a pretty good idea of his finances, and we've been able to do a lot of digging into him. And so we've actually got a pretty precise number. We think he's worth about $15 million, which is plenty of money. That's certainly a lot of money. Some of that is from the pieces of the Kennedy fortune that he's inherited, the stuff that was diluted from his father's share of the Kennedy fortune. But a lot of that is from a very successful, lengthy legal career. He's done a lot of environmental law and a lot of consumer advocacy law. And a chunk of that is also from his wife, actress Cheryl Hines. So between the two of them, they're worth, Cheryl Hines and RFK Jr., of course, are worth about $15 million. That's a pretty good estimate, we think, of their fortune.
$15 million, definitely a pretty penny, but is there any indication of how much Jack Schlossberg is worth?
So we haven't done a proper Forbes valuation of Jack Schlossberg or of his mother, Caroline Kennedy. But we do know, we have another pretty good insight into Caroline Kennedy because she is this ambassador to Australia. She's been in public service for a long time, and she has to file these financial disclosures that lots of public servants have to file. And so you can kind of, if you put Caroline's financial disclosure and RFK Jr.'s financial disclosure next to each other, Caroline's is much longer. It's got hundreds of assets on it compared to far fewer pages of assets for RFK Jr. And she's got multiple assets that she lists as, I think, 2 assets that she lists as between $5 and $25 million in value, which is a very large range. She's got lots of assets that are upwards of $1 million. RFK Jr. only has 2 assets that are worth over $1 million that he reports. So that can kind of give you a sense, even if it's not exact, that Caroline Kennedy, who is RFK Jr.'s cousin, is worth significantly more than him. And then with Jack Schlossberg, of course, Caroline's son, obviously he's only going to get a portion of her overall wealth, but our estimation is it's still likely going to be significantly larger than RFK Jr.'s, even though he's one generation later.
Kyle Mullins, per usual, thank you for the reporting and the conversation.
Great to be here, Brittany. Thank you.